joining us? You can go. Zareen, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So today's session is for extended breastfeeding, right?
Yes, please go ahead.
Just sharing my story.
Yes.
Okay. So hi everyone. My name is Zareen Barda. I have been in India for about 13, 14 years now. And my breastfeeding journey started out with difficulty. So with my firstborn, my main goal had been to fully breastfeed for the first one. And with my son, when we came back home from the hospital, the goal was to be breastfeeding. And this is where the importance of having a lactation consultant come in, where for myself, I delivered in Canada. And with the delivery, they sent a lactation consultant home post-delivery to help you. So they probably came home about day 2 or 3 once I reached home. And that's when my milk had started coming in. So my breasts were quite engorged and the baby had been feeding off of the colostrum at that time. And that was when, for the first time, when they say a baby falls into like a baby coma, when they go into sleep and they have their first feed of full breast milk and they just fall asleep. So that was my first experience with that. I freaked out. The little one had gone to bed. I put him down and I was like, oh my God, I can't hear him breathing. I called my mom. Mom came down. She's like, no, oh my God, he needs to have like formula immediately. Like you need to like feed him. It's because his like sugar is so low and stuff. And then she like went to put in like a bottle of formula in him. And I was like absolutely against it at that point. And I was like in tears. First time mom, this was like a big struggle for me. And thankfully, about half an hour after that, the lactation consultant came, explained everything, helped me through that. And that was like the first and last bottle that my son had. But it was also like something that I was disappointed with, that I struggled with. But it was basically just him falling into a deep sleep of getting his first feed. And the lactation consultant then came, helped me like massage my breasts and release like the engorgement. And that's where it's so important to have support that is going to be supportive of your journey as well as a breastfeeding mom. And that's where she came in 3 more times afterwards to help me support that. And it's like, you have no dignity, I guess, afterwards. It's not that you don't have any dignity, but it's like you have no fear. Like she's massaging your breasts, you're there in pain, you're wanting that support, and everything that you fear or you might have as like tensions or thoughts that might be crossing your mind, they just kind of get washed away when you feel that you've accomplished the breastfeeding. And that's kind of where, can you go in the other room, please, Shreya? That's where it's important to have that support system. And like, honestly, my breastfeeding journey could have gone so differently if she hadn't come in and followed up and supported me. Because I think once you nurse the first time, it's hard. And then once you establish that rhythm, it becomes so much easier. And afterwards, it also helped seeing other moms publicly breastfeed and being surrounded by moms that were publicly breastfeeding, to be able to say, okay, I'm okay with taking my breast out in public and feeding my child. And yes, there are going to be creepy people coming in at all times. But again, one of the things that I had again along this journey was when I would go to malls and places, I would feed my child wherever I needed to. And first it was, okay, I would try to do the cover, but when you're learning and when you're feeding for the first time, putting a cover on, trying to get the baby latched on. And then also for the first time, my nipples weren't protruding out. So I had to use nipple shields as well to kind of help extend the nipple for the baby to latch on easily. So it's like you're thinking about doing all of this under a blanket or under a sheet for someone else's comfort. And that's when I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And every mom is different. If that makes you feel comfortable, go with that. But for example, for me, I found that wasn't comfortable. It wasn't comfortable for me. It wasn't comfortable for the baby. And in afterwards, there are so many new tops and so many other feeding gadgets and things that you can cover your breast as much as possible so that baby just gets the nipple, which makes it easier for you to be feeding on a regular basis in public as well, because I travel a lot, I work outside of the home as well, and just being able to find what works for us was ideal. So that was one of the things, and that's where even again, as I travel with other people, I'll have them like come and stand in front of me. And I'm like, no, you don't need to stand in front of me and protect me and shield me. You don't need to throw a blanket on top of me. Like, because you might feel uncomfortable doesn't mean I'm uncomfortable. And I can understand sometimes where they're coming from, because people are perverted sometimes. And I've come across that where I'll have random strangers come up and talk to me while I'm specifically feeding, and I'll turn around or I'll turn away. But those are my choices to make and stuff. And that's where we need to be more prouder of the way that we're feeding our babies. When we see a cow on the road and you see a baby feeding off of the mother's udders, we don't stop and say, oh my God, that's disgusting, or we don't sexualize that, right? It's how we've changed our society to do that. And that's kind of where we need to be the ones that change the story. So that was kind of where, for my son, I nursed him till about 18 months. And then I had twin girls afterwards. So with the twin girls, we did tandem feeding. That was one of the biggest things, where tandem feeding was like the most important thing for us to do. Where with tandem feeding, how many of you, I guess, show of raise of hands, how many of you guys might have had twins? No. So with twins, it's harder. Even with like an older sibling and then you're tandem feeding, it's hard. So that's where, when you're going to be feeding or setting a routine, I found tandem feeding was best for me, because I also had a toddler at home, where setting that routine to be able to tandem feed them, which was a struggle for the first couple of weeks, because one would be wanting to feed and the other one would be there, which also then helped prevent the listening to the crying while the other one is feeding, because when they're both feeding simultaneously, your breasts are also working together. So usually for moms that have like single babies, when they're feeding, the other breast is letting down at the same time. So it also helps in that sense, where both of your breasts are being emptied at the same time, and one baby's suction is helping the other baby's let down come out faster as well too. So that worked well. And then for the twins, I nursed them till about 4.5 years old, where it was just a natural progression, where one had kind of stopped, slowed down nursing, where after about probably 2.5, 3 years old, she would just kind of come get milk baby before she would go to bed. And then up until about 4.5, one still wanted milk. So I would continue to offer that. And again, it's also depending on the age, what is comfortable for you, and then also what is comfortable for your babies. Because even then, like my partner would always say, okay, well, why are you feeding them? They don't need the milk. They don't want it. It's like, they're like getting so old now. And it's also when we relate breastfeeding to a baby's IQ, a child's IQ, their immunity, everything is correlated. And that's where it's so important that yes, there's a balance that you have to find what works for you and your mental health for breastfeeding. But if you're able to support breastfeeding for as long as possible, you will notice the long-term results that you will see with your children in their immunity. My kids crawl on the floors, eat dirt off the ground, and they're perfectly fine. And my main goal for them is as much holistic natural remedies as possible at home. So avoiding all medication unless absolutely necessary. But that's where up until now, they're 8, 6, and then the youngest one is just turned 1. And that's where all of them have never really seen medication in their life. They know what medication is and what pills are and what syrups are and stuff, but they also know that their bodies are able to respond faster now to nature's medicine as much as possible, because their immunity has also been supported by breast milk. And that's where if you're sick or if you're having a cough or a cold, don't avoid or distance yourself from your baby. That's the time when you want to be nursing your baby as much as possible, because all of the immunity building that your body's doing, it's coming into your baby. And for example, during my fourth pregnancy, so the twins I nursed till about 4.5 and they naturally stopped. However, when I delivered my youngest one, they were curious as to, okay, can we nurse again? And I was saying, okay, if you want to nurse again after the baby comes, you're more than welcome to nurse. But I think it's also they're at the age where it's like, oh, well, is this gross for me to be drinking from mommy's breast? Or is this like kind of thing? Because they'll hear my husband also say comments where my husband encourages breastfeeding, but it's also, he's like, well, why are you telling them to drink milk? They're too old for this now. But the thing is, there's still benefits in the milk. So why would you not offer them that? And so it's kind of like an experiment with the older girls right now, and even for my son. But with the youngest one, again, we've exclusively breastfed. But every time, even though you have your first journey with your firstborn, you're relearning and restarting all over again, because with that, your nipples are changing, your nipples get engorged, get cracked. All that process starts all over again. So I would say the first 2 weeks of restarting breastfeeding again is a struggle again, because you're going through those same challenges. And once you kind of get through that, and once you've established breastfeeding at about 6 weeks to 3 months, that's when you're able to then start playing around with exercise, diet, different things to see how that affects your milk supply, and working with what works for you and your body. Because for me, I never lost weight when I was nursing. I always held on to weight when I was nursing, and that's just your body's way of telling you need to have that extra fat on and keep that there. And that's perfectly fine, because later on, once the girls got a little bit older, around 3 or 4, is when I started being a little bit stricter with cleaner eating. As it is, I was eating fairly clean, but just being a little bit stricter with what exactly I was eating and making sure that that helped me along the breastfeeding journey as well. A couple other things that helped with the breastfeeding journey was, once I delivered, my mom would regularly make like kaji and like a lot of like roasted almonds, doing like a kind of like a sauce, like a roasted coconut, roasted herbs and spices that you're basically just chewing on to help your digestive system, keep your womb kind of warm and compressed, and then also helping the baby's digestive system. And that's where you'll find each baby is different. I don't really have dairy much. I do have it occasionally, but I never had milk and stuff throughout my pregnancies or postpartum. So that's kind of where sometimes for women that have dairy, you might see allergies coming up, like psoriasis or rashes coming up in babies. So being mindful of your diet as well, where, for example, with my firstborn, I had Brussels sprouts a couple of weeks afterwards. Big mistake, because it was the worst night ever, where he had a lot of gas, bloating. And I knew, okay, I can't bring that into my diet right now. Otherwise, I'm going to be suffering and struggling the whole night. So it's kind of finding that balance where dals, lentils, they're a big part of the Indian diet. Finding what works for you and just making sure you're soaking your food so that way the nutrition is still coming in through the milk and you're not creating as much gas or constipation or bloating in baby's tummy as well too. So just kind of figuring that out. That was like a big part as well of the breastfeeding journey, and figuring out what food suited me. And then the baby, I never didn't eat spicy food. I always, like, I love spicy food, garlic, ginger, onions, like all of that stuff was always part of my diet. And that's where that also in turn helps the baby's taste buds adapt, because your baby is tasting the food that you're ingesting and digesting, whether it might be a little bit spicier. Breast milk is still going to be sweet, but that then also helps their taste buds develop and generate over a period of time. So that's kind of my journey. And then right now I have a little one. He's just turned 1, where he's still nursing. And it's basically, for all of my kids, it's always been nursing on demand, pretty much. Whenever they're hungry, I'll offer the breast. And then now that he's over 1, he's having some foods, but again, it's still just fruits and vegetables, maybe some rice. And that's about it. But still, breast milk is the main diet for them. And that's kind of where a lot of the kids nowadays, you'll see them kind of getting whole foods or solid foods a lot earlier. And that was one of the things that I probably offered my kids very late. Even for my firstborn, I didn't offer him a fruit or anything until he was probably 8 or 9 months. And that was someone else giving it to him without my consent. So it's kind of like you find your own journey with what works for you and your kids, because your breast milk is there to nourish them. And that's kind of where one of the things that we want to relate is when people say, okay, our baby's maybe not gaining enough weight. Every baby, every body is different. Just as long as you're noticing from diapers, poops, those will be the regular determinants of whether your baby is being fed enough, getting enough nutrients, and excreting enough as well. And that's where each kid, when it comes to the poo, each kid was also different, where some would poo every week, once a week, maybe on breast milk for the first few months. Some would poo every day. And that's kind of where it's different, where for breast milk fed babies, they're able to go almost, I think, 7 to 10 days without having to have a bowel movement and not be constipated. So just making sure you're finding the support and the right facts to help you along that journey is one of the biggest things. So all of you guys that are on this call is like a huge thing, because these are all moms that are wanting to breastfeed or trying to figure out breastfeeding along their journey, or have already completed their journeys, and that are there to support you. Because that was my biggest thing, was I would always go to a birth center for mom and baby yoga and stuff. And at that center, there were probably at least 10 to 15 other moms that would stop during their workouts at any time, pop out their breast, feed their baby, nourish their baby. And that was one of the biggest empowering things for me, was to see that on a regular basis, to say, this is okay to be done in public. You don't have to go to a bathroom and hide. You don't have to go out somewhere else or sit outside in the car in the heat or something to feed your baby. You can do this in public. And that's where we as women need to start being more proactive to say that, and kind of come out of our own comfort levels to be able to do this for our babies and our little ones as well too. Because we shouldn't say, okay, well, you can wait till we get home and then I'll feed you at home in the comfort of my home. Yes, it might be a little bit more comfortable, but as you start adapting yourself to be able to feed anywhere, it makes it easier for you, and it makes it easier for them as well too, to be able to take your baby with you anywhere. So I don't know if that was a little longer than expected, but that's kind of my journey for nursing my 4 little ones. Thank you. Is there someone else that wants to come on and share as well?
Yes, Zareen, thank you so much. This was so beautiful, full of information, full of your insights, full of your experience. And that's what these dialogues are all about. This is what will make it authentic. And we are hoping that this reaches out to more and more women, mothers, because we really need a community, like you said. Can we have Khyati up next to share her story?
Yeah, sure. Just a sec. Yeah, hi everybody. So I have joined a little late. Hi. Okay, so Zareen, I would like to tell you that the journey seems to be very beautiful and wonderful. And it is also very inspiring for those mothers who are here, who are breastfeeding right now, and they would like to look up to you, right? Because having twins, so I also have twins. I'm still nursing them. Sorry, I couldn't reply at that point of time. But having said all of this, we should also keep one thing in mind, the mental health of the mother, right? The breastfeeding mothers who did not breastfeed, their young ones because of, there could be many reasons for that. They did not get the support or help, the right guidance or whatever, or the baby weaned off on his or her own. But having said all of that, yes, your journey is really inspiring, and I got inspired because I'm still breastfeeding my twins. One of them is still on, and she's 3.5, and the other one has already weaned off on her own. So I didn't say anything to her. Yesterday also I mentioned the same thing. Having said that, uh, the benefits of breastfeeding, everybody knows. People like you, me, everybody who's there in the session right now. But other people, they don't know, they do not want to know. So we have to really make a lot of awareness, a lot of education has to be given to the mothers, would be mothers, I would say, during the prenatal stage itself. But the benefits that a toddler gets, you know let's say, so my baby's, the one who's still feeding is 3.5, and I can see the changes in them, both of them, and my elder one. The changes that I see, they are not fussy eaters. They have developed the taste buds. They eat everything. It's there in the plate and they'll have it. No, ye nahi khana, wo nahi khana, give me that. They do not know. I would say they don't want to have burgers, pasta. So the one who is still feeding, she told me yesterday, mama, mujhe aap kal pasta nahi doge, give me roti and sabzi. And I was like, oh my God. And she was, and I was like, I thought it, yes, he bol rahi hai na, just like that, because they're very talkative. They just keep on talking. So I said, aise bola hoga, let's forget it. And the other day I gave them burger, all homemade, but yes, because it's little tiffin that they take to the school, right? They're in nursery. And she came back and she told me again the same thing. आपने मुझे बर्गर क्यों दिया? मैंने आपको बोला था ना रोटी सब्जी देने को. So the point here is like, they have got the home cooked food taste. They have already tasted it. It was through my breastfeeding, and I have not introduced, those Cerelac and this and that. I did not introduce. Why I didn't? Because by the time I was going to have my twins, I was well educated on all of this. But when I compare my twins with my elder one, huge difference. Huge difference. She's a picky eater. She will not eat the dinner if it has got, tori, ghee, lauki. She will not eat. She will say, "Mera papet bhara hua, I am not hungry." But if I feed them, they will take it happily. So that is the difference if you are continuing breastfeeding. But yes, it is a choice that the mother has to sometimes take because of the reasons. Maybe, she's not getting that much milk, or maybe she doesn't want to continue. We have to take that part also in consideration. We cannot just force the mother to breastfeed the baby, after 2 years also. Maybe she is not comfortable, maybe the circumstances, situation she is in is not allowing her to do that, right? A lot of family pressure, peer pressure, even in fact the healthcare providers, they also tell you, why are you feeding the baby? It is not required. They being into the healthcare sector, they being doctors, and eminent personalities and all, but they do not consider feeding a toddler. So sometimes this also make the mother wean off the child. Lack of education is that is the most important point, I would say. So if the mother is not aware, if the mother is not educated on this part, why would she want to continue? She doesn't know about it in the first place. But yes, if you are continuing and you want to continue breastfeeding, that is number one. And if your toddler, if your baby wants to continue with it, this is the best thing, I would say. Even if the baby is, turned 3 or 4, still the brain development is going on. And the IQ, that will play a very important role. So you are not going to assess the IQ right away, right? But when the baby goes to the school, then you can see the difference with the other babies who are being bottle fed or formula fed. You see the changes, and we should obviously about the immunity. So breastfed baby. So I can relate all those points, and I can resonate with you, Zareen, because when you were talking, I could easily, and I was like, yes, this is what happens here also in my house, right? So with my kids, so immunity also plays a very important role over here. My children, they do get sick sometimes, cold, cough, the running nose and all, but it's not like that builds up the immunity. So it is not that if you are done if the baby turns 2, you are done with breastfeeding. It is nothing like. I'm sorry, there was a. So, so this is, we just have to make the would-be mothers more aware about the fact. If you want to feed, please go ahead. And what are the various ways they can, take it to have this beautiful journey, you know, for at least whatever time they would like to have. We should help, support, and give all the confidence to the mother. So with me, I was like, so yesterday also I told you the same thing. So I being in the same profession, so I have this thing, oh, I can do it. So that I can do it is, it plays a very important role. Even if there are people telling you not to do, you will do it because you know you want to do it and you can do it. So that is the difference that makes a huge, huge difference especially in this breastfeeding journey. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Welcome. You're welcome.
I'm like the absent host here. I'm so sorry that I'm not able to help out with my duties, but while it's working, I'll help out. I loved hearing your story yesterday also. So it was nice to hear part 2 today. Who do we have next?
Shireen is joining us from Qatar. Shireen, would you like to share your story?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Saman.
Thank you. What Katy told, no, same thing I also had. Like he breastfeeding started immediately after after giving birth. Like Zareen told, he also drank full to his full and he slept off. That was I didn't know that would be the last like full night sleep I'll be having. You know, after 3 years I had that full night sleep again. So my husband, my baby and me, we just slept off and just morning, like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, that's when we woke up. Then no waking up in between, nothing. It was very peaceful sleep that day I got. No, I was surprised. Like, oh, I was asking my husband, did he wake up? Or, like, I didn't know, or like that, because I was too tired. No, he didn't wake up. Like, we had a very sound sleep that day, just like Zareen told, no, the coma. I didn't know it was a coma, but yeah, like that we had. And then after that, breastfeeding was like, he used to breastfeed all 2 hours, correct, like an alarm clock, always feeding like that. Hello. Okay. Like that, I continued, but sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it was like very, I always had trouble sleeping and all that. But after breastfeeding, it's like that hormones are induced and you feel sleepy, right? With the baby, you sleep and it was so comfortable. So starting, I was enjoying it like that. It was, and I used to always lie and give him breast milk, and that was very comfortable. Sitting is like, I don't like sitting like that in chair, putting pillow and keeping him in the pillow. That was what relatives used to tell you to breastfeed like that. But I always preferred, I'll just close the door and I'll just lie and he will come breastfeed. That was the easiest thing, no effort taken by my side. So that felt easy for me. So like that, it continued 1 year, 2 year, like that. It was okay. But then after 2 years, they'll get jumpy, they'll do circus and breastfeed and all those things. Then it's like, oh my God, no, no. I want to stop like that. You'll feel, because it's like not too important. Like he'll breastfeed, but he used to feed and then go to sleep. So he was like, he'll jump, he'll see, oh, how can I breastfeed today? Like that. He'll feed upside down, left, right, all these things. And at night I had to be keep on turning, and that was hard for me. Then like, because I'm in Qatar, I'm not with my family. So not too much pressure, like stop, like that too much. Just like video calls, I'll get pressure. Like it's 2 years now, you have to stop like that. Everyone else has stopped and like that. All my relatives who are like, they have almost same age kids, they all have stopped. So like 2.5, I went India and they were all trying so many things, like putting aloe vera, I will put no, so that it'll be sore, so that they'll not drink like that all. And then, then it was very hard. 2.5 years, you'll not at all stop. Full crying. You can't, console him at all. My husband used to take him. I used to take him. Then I had to go to terrace. There is a swing which he likes. Then I'll keep him there. I'll swing him and then sing to him. Only that, like that, he'll sleep. So it was like very bad, taking one flight of steps just to make him sleep and, singing and that all. Oh my God, breastfeeding is more easy as like that. Then, but I also like that time I was tired, like night sleep is getting, disturbed and all that. But then only thing that happened that time was he stopped feeding to sleep, and that was a very big help, that was making me frustrated and everything. And that was helpful. So I could find a balance and that continued like that. So 2.5 years, then 3 years like that, it went off and no one bothered, like, okay, she'll keep on breastfeeding. We can't do anything. Like they didn't bother because only calls, no, so not much. Okay, it was fine. So 3 years, 3.5 years, like again, I went to India like that. And one day what happened was like, he likes my brother a lot and he likes spending time with him, his uncle. Appo, then he was like, I want to sleep with him like that. Then I told, how can you sleep with him? Like you need milk, right? Then he told, no need, I don't need milk. I was like, oh my God. He himself is telling that he doesn't need milk. And then he told like, I'll sleep. Then I told, you try one day, okay? If you don't drink milk today, tomorrow you can sleep with him. Then he slept. Then he came in between to drink milk. Then I asked, you want milk? No, I'm sleeping. He just slept off 3.5 years like that. He slept off. That was the first day, like without milk, he slept off. And then I thought, okay, now he's ready. Like not like 2.5 years. That time he was like, no, it's like it won't happen. So I thought, okay, I'll try and like that. Like that each day he used to get up, but still I could console him, like tap into sleep or tell stories. I used to download so many stories to tell him like that. And then music, white noise, all that worked out. Some different methods I used to try, but okay, it was not too much hectic like before. And then it was okay, fine. Then only in the afternoon when he used to have nap, for bridging the nap, he used to take milk like that. It continued. Now also it's continuing like that 1 or 2 times in the afternoon, and that's okay. We both are happy with that. We found our balance and we are okay. And then what can I say? Like this breastfeeding journey, it connects you a lot with the child. That connection I don't think I would have got without that. Mm. And then he also doesn't take any medicines. He'll eat just like tulasi leaves. If he's sick, he'll go take tulasi, he'll eat. If he has any injury, he know which leaf to take. He'll just put it on his lap like that. He used to do mosquito bites or like that. Food like that, natural remedies. He also likes honey. He'll ask for honey. If he's sick, if he has cough, he'll say, okay, now it's oil time, right? We'll do oil massage. I'm sick. He knows that. That is the routine what we do. We don't, he doesn't eat the other medicine. He also doesn't like, and all the food he'll try. But problem was when he was breastfeeding, he used to eat very little solid and he never ate baby food. So everyone was complaining like, you're giving milk, that's why he's not eating. If you stop, he'll be hungry in the morning, like that, all issues I had. But then I was like, fine, anyway, he's getting milk, even if he's sick, like he'll not eat anything else now, but milk is there. That was a big comfort. So like that we continued and we are still continuing. I don't know. I don't want to stop actually. Like it's comfortable for him, it's comfortable for me, so why stop? Like let me see how long it will go. Like that. That is my journey. Okay, I don't think he'll allow anything more from me, so that's it. Thank you.
Sharon, thank you so much. It was really nice to have your son with you while you told the story.
Yeah, there's no other way. He'll be full time with me.
I felt so many similarities between what my experience has been and your experience. So thank you for sharing. Saman, who do we have next?
We have a lot of people on the list, Leslie. Should we invite Neha to share her story?
Yes, great. Neha?
Just give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. Hi, good morning, everybody. Sorry for that. My older one just came in. It's very, very inspiring to hear all these lovely stories, and we obviously have similar. We have a lot of similarities. Mothers who've breastfed for more than a year, especially. That's when you're pushing boundaries, and you're constantly being watched and hawked upon, but you still want to do what you want to do because that's good for your baby and it makes you feel good. So I breastfed both my babies for 2 years, and the older one tandem fed when my younger baby was born. She was about 4 and she was 4 years and 10 months old when he was born. So she started feeding again. And then we continued the journey for her for about 8 months more. So both my babies have had breath holding spells. I'm not sure if a lot of mothers or if anybody is aware of what breath holding spells are. Does anybody know what breath holding spells are? No. Okay, so I'll just give you a very short brief on that. Breath holding spell is basically when your baby turns absolutely blue. They forget to take a breath, and their hands and their legs, it gets very stiff and tightened up, and they close their eyes and they're literally gone. They're like they're not breathing. They're not when she turned 1, she had a fall and she cried, and she didn't get up. That was very scary. So at that point of time, I would pat her back and I would do all sorts of stunts, and I would try and bring her back to conscious, only to realize that this started happening every week. Breath holding spells, basically, when I did my research, it says that kids were very stubborn to this. When they don't get what they want, they do it. When they're angry, when they're upset, they do this. But my 1-year-old was never of that kind. So she always had a breath holding spell when she would fall. I was 9th month, full grown, pregnant, all almost on the verge of delivery any day. And she fell down from a slide. And I was the only one in the park. And I carried her. And it was only me and her in the garden at that point of time. And whenever she would have a spell of this kind, she would always want to be kept alone. Just put them down on the ground, just make them lie down flat. Don't do anything with them. And let air come in, let them breathe. Once they gain their conscious back, they will start crying again, and they will then start heavily breathing. So all of this happened during my last month of pregnancy as well. And that's the last time she did it. My second one was born, and he was 4 days old in the hospital, and he was crying, and he had a spell. And I noticed it. And I realized it, and the doctor was like, I didn't know, such a small baby cannot have breath holding spell. You're just exaggerating. I said, I know, he's turned blue, completely blue. The remedy for breath holding spells, if you go online also and check, is you just need to put the baby flat on the ground. Babies are out for almost 2.5-3 minutes as well, and they regain their conscious back. They start getting fits. It can get really worse. Thankfully, it was not that bad for me. But a baby not breathing for about 6-7 seconds to a minute is enough to kill you. So I dealt with that. I dealt with my 6-day-old baby also doing the same thing, and he still does it. This goes at about 5 years of age. They say that that's when it subsides down. While this would happen, the minute they would gain their conscious back, I would put them on my breast. And I would start giving them milk. Of course, I would want them to breathe for a little while. And I would then put them on milk, and they would have milk, and they would be completely fine, no matter how bad the fall is, no matter if they're stubborn, no matter if it's something that they wanted and they didn't get that. They didn't have any issues with breast milk. Whereas, on the contrary, when I went to doctors, only to understand this whole breath holding spell journey, the doctors were like, oh, your baby's having a lot of milk. Milk is a very big problem. There's too much of iron going in. 6 months ho gaye hain, you should stop. Or it's been a year, you should stop now. You should start giving him more of food. And I'm like, okay, I understand, but tell me, why does this happen? Now, there is no reason for breath holding spells. It can get very, very cyanotic as well. It can reach your brain. It can cause a lot of damage also to kids. But if it's at a very basic level, you can handle it simply by just putting the child down on the floor and not doing any sorts of stunts on the child, which I've done with my older one. I used to put my finger in her mouth so that, she doesn't clench her mouth like this. And I would get human bites. Only to realize, like a few episodes of this when happened, I did my research on YouTube, saw mothers, I joined a lot of groups, got their help. I learned that the safest thing was you can give them your milk. If they're not eating after that for an hour or two, it's okay. Just give them your milk, just put them on the ground, and it'll be all fine and safe. But I used to get a lot of negativity for that. So I've had to push all of that and deal with this. I'm still dealing with it now. Of course, he doesn't feed, but I know how to get him back to his conscious, and I know how to take care of him. So this was one thing that I wanted to mention on the day of the magic of breast milk also, but I just forgot about it. So I thought I'll mention this today. No matter what people tell you, no matter how good or bad it is, if it's good for you, if it's benefiting your baby, I think there is nothing more better than breastfeeding your child at any point of time, no matter how difficult it can get. And at the same time, I would also like to mention, somebody was even Priyanka was mentioning the other day that it's not necessary that you always breastfeed your babies. I've had my own sister-in-laws who couldn't breastfeed their kids. And they've killed themselves for it. The mom guilt has killed themselves. But that's fine. I mean, they've seen benefits of, like the allergy benefits, the skin rash benefits. My younger one had a lot of constipation. There were blood stools also. And he would get rashes, potty ke hole mein he would get rashes. So I would just take my breast milk and I would just put it on. So they would, feel so bad when I would share my stories. They would feel so bad. Oh, see, you can do so much. We can't do all of this. And they've seen how things have helped the baby, especially during these spells. In my house, nobody wants to take care of my kids because they get so frightened on the fact that, oh my God, if her child falls down, and if he's unconscious for even like 4-5 seconds, what are we going to do? Obviously, nobody would want to take such a blame on themselves. I don't want to take a blame of that sort. But so I don't leave my kids anywhere, and nobody wants them also. But yeah, there have been episodes where I would want some sort of help and I've not got that sort of help, but that's fine. I mean, that's okay. That's a call I've taken of not leaving them anywhere because I know it can get very scary for kids. I just hope that, now he doesn't have these episodes, though I'm waiting for him to turn 5 so that he doesn't get these kind of episodes. But yes, this was one thing that I wanted to share today when we were pushing boundaries, that no matter what people tell you, whether you're able to feed or you're not able to feed, breast milk is definitely beneficial for your baby. But if you're not able to, please don't kill yourselves for it. So, thank you. That's all that I wanted to share with you today.
Neha, thank you so much. Your story had me like, I just had a million emojis for you because my heart was just exploding for what you've gone through. And that is a lot. Parenthood is a lot, but to see your children unconscious or not breathing and have it go on for minutes is like, I mean, I really, that I can only imagine what that is like.
Yeah, I mean, when he was just born and he started having these episodes at home, it was very scary because for the older one, I realized that when she would have a fall, I could even distract her. So she had that sense of getting distracted. So if she would have a fall, I would put her down. Once she gains her conscious back, I would be able to take her out somewhere or show her something else so that her mind is distracted. But with a 7-8-day-old baby, how do you distract the child? So what we used to do is we would put, just take an ice cube and just rub it on his back, and instantly he would do this, and he would get his conscious back. Now so they become like a still baby, and you can't even throw the still baby. You can't throw a 7-8-day-old baby up in the air to gain their conscious or to even have them distracted, because they don't even know what distraction is.
Right.
And then when I was on the help support group with other mothers, one of them told me that don't put an ice pack or any of this sort, because it can affect their spine. Their nervous systems are developing. Their brains are developing too fast, and you don't know which vein or which nerve can cause an impact on them. So don't do that. So I'm like, how do I get a 10-12-day-old baby, to his conscious? They're like, just keep him close to you. Just put him on the, make him lie down flat on the ground. And it's very difficult to do that, trust me. When you see them not breathing, it's like every day you live with that fear. Oh my God, I think I've lost him. I think I've lost her. When I was 9 months old, when she fell down from the top of the slide and I lifted her up, the entire public in the garden gathered, and I was just screaming that please don't come close to me. I'm fine. At that time, I didn't even bother whether I should take care of the one inside me or the one outside me. All I wanted was to her gain conscious. Of course, she was more important to me than I could have lost. Anything could have happened, but thankfully nothing did. But yes, it is a very painful and difficult situation. But the milk has helped, and it has definitely kept them once they're on. So the only distraction he would have was when he would come back to conscious, and as soon as I would put him on my breast, he would be like, okay. And then, then they go in their own zone of, oh wow, I'm having this amazing thing. Their eyes go like, this is amazing. So that's the only distraction I would have for him, yes, and for her initially. So it has definitely worked and helped. So
that is an extraordinary story of how breast milk helps. That really,
it's comforting.
Thank you so much.
Right? It's soothing, and it gets you close to the mother. They're closer to the heart, they're closer to the body, skin to skin. There are a lot of things that are working at that point of time. So it just does its own magic in its own way. It's just very, very special for them. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think that someone has said we have Aparna next. Aparna, are you ready?
Hi, I'm Aparna. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. My signal is not great, so I'm going to switch off my camera, but I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So I couldn't hear Zarin's story completely. In between, I had to go. And Neha's also, I couldn't hear completely. So only to the later end, I could hear. And it was very moving, Neha. I don't know how you travel through all these things. And I don't have much of I didn't have any much of difficulties compared to Neha. Mine was pretty easy journey. But for my firstborn was in birth village. I gave birth to both the babies in birth village to natural delivery. So my firstborn was in 2017. So initially, I had a bit of difficulty to breastfeed, and I had my midwife there. My midwife helped me to correct the latch and everything. So it was pretty easy for me. Initially, it was I was not afraid of breastfeeding. And I always planned on breastfeeding too. Like even when I got pregnant, I was sure that I will breastfeed the child. And I was doing my PG that time, my post graduation in pediatric dentistry that time. So 3 months after I gave birth, I had to join back. So I took the baby with me. My mother also came with me, and my plan was to breastfeed him. Like I was staying very close to the college, so I would come in between and then breastfeed in between. I had pumped and kept the milk and everything. So it was like that. So, but I had this immense pressure from my mentors to stop breastfeeding. Like I was going in between my cases. Like in between, I was going every 2 hours, not every 2 hours, but 4 to 5 hours. I had to take a gap and then go. But then, even though they were all pediatric dentists, they all knew the importance of breast milk and then feeding and the development of jaw. I had this immense pressure to stop breastfeeding at that time. So, and they don't actually tell you. Initially, they told me, but when they knew that I won't stop breastfeeding, they put the other drama stuff in between, like the mental torture. Like they scold you for not taking the cases properly, not doing things properly. So all those things. But anyway, I continued. I continued for my first one. I breastfed him till 3.5 years. Like that. That was the time when I got pregnant for the second time. And he weaned himself because he told me that milk is not coming, Amma. So I'm not. I don't want breast milk now. I will feed once the baby comes. So and then during when he was around 1.5 year old, he had this very severe diarrhea. Diarrhea in the sense it went on for around 10 days. 10 days he couldn't eat anything at all. Like only he will feed, just feed nothing he will eat. Even if he drinks a little bit of honey, it will just come out or he will poop. It was like that, and the poop was watery also. But all through this time, even when I took him to doctor after 5 days, but then he was like, the baby is okay. He's talking, he's active, he's walking. No need to admit the baby. Maybe you can give him an antibiotic if you are keen. But then I told him, no, I will wait for some more time. But then these 10 days, I gave him only breast milk. So that was when it struck me like, oh my God, this is really magic. He couldn't eat anything at all. I was like really worried, but he will bring my breast milk. So that was the one thing I was like I was really shocked to like you don't get to see those kinds of things in real life, no. So that was the one moment I realized the magic of breast milk. Then after that, even though after 2.5 years, I wanted to wean him, but thinking of all the benefits, I just continued breastfeeding, and he himself weaned by 3.5 years. For my younger one also, it was not initially it was not very difficult, but then she's very adamant. I don't know, she's very strong willed. So when she's breastfeeding, when she's feeding on one breast, she will just play with the other one. I don't, later on I found that there is a term for it called nipple rage. So I don't know where that rage will come from, but as soon as she touch the other breast, I'm like, oh my God, like I'll bite myself. Even now, even yesterday, I had done that. I'll bite myself because I get so angry. I don't know how to tackle that also. So that is a one difficult time thing that I have now. But other than that, everything is fine. Everything is smooth. Even for her, she had this really severe allergy thing initially when she was born, and doctors have asked me to give this anti-allergics, antihistamines, and everything. But I have not given it yet, and her allergy has come down really drastically. Also, that too, I think, is because of this. Because I'm continuously feeding her, and that too, I believe that this is a magic of the breast milk. Yeah. So my journey is pretty okay. But and I have been feeding them from 2017. So there was a gap of 6 months in between. But apart from that, my breasts are not my own. It is my children's I feel. Yeah, that's all. That's all.
Aparna, thank you so much. One thing I wanted to that I thought of is that for nipple rage or any kind of aversion at all, I've heard that magnesium can be very helpful. Have you heard this?
No, I have not heard of.
So for a magnesium supplement for the mother.
Okay. Magnesium supplement, I have to take it like.
Yeah, you
I-
can
I-
take it orally.
Yes.
Mhm. I could
Okay,
even,
okay.
if Brent has a good one, I could even put it on the group maybe. I'll share some
Yeah,
options.
please do, please do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You made me laugh at the end that your breasts are, but our breasts are not our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Who do we have next, someone?
Leslie, why don't you tell us your story?
Okay.
And then we can maybe invite Nutan Pandit ma'am to tell us really, what are the continued benefits of lactation? And then whoever wants to share.
Okay, super. The first thing I want to say is that there's this thread that we're all hearing and we're from the outside world, which is that, you have to stop. We're all hearing we have to stop. At some point, our baby is too old, and we've all had this real pressure, it seems, to stop. And I don't have a lot of forums where I speak so openly about the extended breastfeeding that I'm doing because the pressure has stopped to stop, as someone had said. I'm not really sure who at this point said it. Maybe Zareen, that, people gave up saying you should stop now because you kept going on so long. So people don't say that to me so much anymore, but I know how they feel and I know they think I'm kind of crazy. So anyway, I'm going to take this opportunity right now to start speaking up about this because I want to counter the voices, not just to you guys who are my people who understand the same journey that I'm on, but to others, because I want to be a voice to counter that voice of your baby doesn't need your milk anymore, because it's very strong in this world and it's hurting mothers and babies, quite frankly. So my journey, at one, when my daughter was 1, my first child was 1, there was a very big pressure. I felt like it was coming from around me, my mother-in-law, that, I was always told if your baby can ask for milk by my mother, then they're too old to have it. And so she was quite, a big girl at 1, but she was nowhere close to being ready to stop breastfeeding. It was a very important part of her life still. And I knew that, and I had to stand up against people that I respected to continue doing something I knew was important. And that right there is a huge deal in itself. And I feel like that is how I became a woman. I became a woman in my own right by standing up for my children. And when I stood up for my children, I then began to stand up for myself. So continuing breastfeeding was definitely a huge milestone. So after 1, we kept going. And, then around 2.5, I became pregnant again, and she fed through the whole time. During that time, I did put a limit on night feeding because I just had reached my own personal limit and I didn't feel like she needed it anymore. And she was feeding a lot at night. And so I taught her, that my breasts go to sleep at night with all of us and they will wake up in the morning with the sun and they'll be there for you and you can have them. And she really responded to that. It took a couple of days and then we kept co-sleeping and that worked for both of us. And then at the end of my pregnancy, I think my milk stopped, maybe like my 7th month or something. And I was still letting her feed till her heart's content at bedtime, but her heart was not getting contented, nor was her stomach, because there was no milk. So looking back on that, I think I probably could have limited it a little bit, but maybe the suckling helped. I don't really know, but it was hard. It was a little bit of a hard process. And then my milk came back and I was very passionate about tandem feeding because I didn't want her to feel that her sibling had taken the milk away. So I read a book, I got a book about like adventures in tandem feeding or something. And I really wanted it to tell me how to do this. I wanted to know the right way. It really didn't give answers like that of technical answers. It was more about stories and pretty much one family's journey with tandem feeding. So the way I figured it out mostly, I'm right around this time also, someone said that their older child fed till the count of 10. And I thought, 10 seconds. Like, I mean, she had been feeding for 45 minutes on that dry breast before. So I thought, a count of 10, that sounds crazy. But I introduced it once my other baby was there, and she really took to it. She was like 10 seconds. So what worked for us was that he fed and emptied a breast to his ability. And then she could have that breast. I was very, very nervous that she would steal milk from the younger child. A mother had warned me that when your next baby comes, you know, the feelings of protecting the first baby, it changes, and you might see them as a bigger child, and a lot of the feelings of protection come for the little one, and that really happened for me. So I was quite thankful that I was given, you know, that possibility by someone else's consciousness. So I was very fearful that she would take the milk, which she did once in the night. She breastfed while I was sleeping and emptied a breast, and the whole day was a little bit of catch up because, you know, I wasn't quite as prepared milk wise for the day as I would usually be. So, but that only happened once. So she would feed, he would empty a breast, and then she would get to feed on that breast. And she was happy just having a little bit of milk. She didn't really want more. It was like a touchstone. She just wanted to check in. And sometimes they would feed together. And I did remember when somebody was talking about, you know, in the twos, how they do that acrobatic feeding. I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'd forgotten about the acrobatic feeding stage. So then around 4 years old, I began to feel like I was ready to set a limit for my older child, and she wasn't. I'm not sure if she was really ready. She wasn't relying on milk. She, like I said, she was having it till the count of 10, really, very briefly. But when I did set the limit, it was very sad and hard. Hi, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We lost you for a second. Yeah.
Okay. Wait. I turned off my video. Is that better maybe?
We can hear you. So if there's
Okay.
aberration, you can switch it off again.
Okay, great. So at 4 and some months, I initiated stopping with my eldest child, and she was sad. She was sad, but once I kind of put up the boundary, she never really asked for it again. And she was around. Her brother was just maybe 6 months old or so, so she was around breastfeeding. Or no, he was maybe 9 months or so. So she was around breastfeeding, and she was kind of ready to be done. She's 10 now. She still likes to hug my breast quite a bit. And her brother is now 6, and he has Down syndrome. And he could latch from the very beginning, which was great. He was in the hospital for 8 days. He was bottle fed. I did pump. But from the first time we tried to feed, he could, and he had a great latch, which was wonderful. And he's 6 and he's still breastfeeding, and that really blows my mind. I would have never imagined. But the thing is that he's about at a 3-year-old developmental stage, I would say, and it's naturally becoming a less integral part of his life, just like I've heard some people say. And just like it happened for Davy, my daughter, it's naturally becoming something that has less and less of a place, but it still has a place for him. And I do think for preschoolers, like somebody was mentioning that, you know, when Aparna's son had diarrhea and a bad stomach, that has also happened to my children in the preschool years, and it has been so healthy for them that they were still feeding because they would have been in the hospital without it. Davy, when she turned 3, she had a throat infection. She had no other food for 4 days. And there's no way that she wouldn't have been in the hospital in a serious condition, because she breastfed through the whole thing. So she had nourishment, and actually she didn't actually take medicine for it that time either. But same with Jonah. I see now that as children come out of their preschool years and become more and more independent, they can join in ways of healing and being healthy, and they know how to maybe, I don't know, take other remedies. But as children are even in preschool years, they really can't help themselves by themselves, even with medicine or not, through an illness. And I feel like that's a wonderful extra benefit to extended breastfeeding. Somebody had asked me recently about, or they were asking the group about an example of somebody who nurses with their child without any limitations from the outside. And one of my role models when I had my first baby was the woman who was working for me, and she is from Jharkhand, but she's here by herself without her mother, no mother-in-law, no mother, no aunties. She's here in Goa, and she fed her children until they were 4, and she fed all night long, even in their 3s. And that is her relationship with her child, and her making the decisions together. And that's what has come naturally for both of them. And so she's a great role model for me. And I think the last thing is that in having to go against what people said about stopping breastfeeding at 1 year old and feeling that real intense, pain inside to kind of go against people that I respected, that choice has served me so well in gaining that strength, because when I was pregnant with my second child, he was diagnosed with having Down syndrome in utero. And so at 16 weeks, I had to make a choice. And the messaging that I was getting from the outside was very, very heavily in favor of termination. And I knew in my heart that would break me, that I couldn't have gone on if I did that. It just was not the choice for me. And so I had to stand up seriously against a lot of people that love me and that I love, to say that, no, this child is coming. We wanted a child, and this is the one that's coming, and it's coming. And I think I got that bravery through being a mother and having to stand up for my kids. So, but that bravery is making me a whole person. So it's not just for them. It makes me who I am today. So thank you so much for creating this forum and giving us a chance to talk from our hearts and to feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you so much. I have no words.
Thank you for making this happen. Seriously, very meaningful. Thank you.
Sometimes words just fail, and I think that's what motherhood teaches you. You don't really need words. You don't need to explain it to anyone.
It's so true.
And we're all together in this. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to invite Nutan Pandit ma'am, if she's here, to just give us kind of a sense of how breastfeeding never loses its quality. It doesn't matter how long you breastfeed for, how good, how important it is, not just for the baby, not for the mother, but for us as a humanity, for the society as a whole. And we have Garima after that lined up to share her story, and she's written a little something. So we'd like to close the session with her. And if there's anybody else who would like to talk, we still have another couple of days to go. And all these topics actually are they are interwoven. And so we can share our stories on any day. Can we have Nota and Pandit ma'am to just give us a...
Yes, I find this so moving, today's session. And I'm reminded of, I read some years ago that they have discovered that breast milk has stem cells. And that means the breast milk will go and repair anything that requires repairing in the body, be it in the brain, be it in the bone, be it anywhere. And today's story of Neha and Leslie seems to validate that, because I do have a friend from when I was young, whose daughter used to have these breath holding episodes. And she used to really panic, and I don't think she knew exactly what to do. And her daughter is she has learning difficulties now. So the fact that, you know, you breastfeed them after the episode, I'm sure it goes a long way in taking care of them, and it makes you feel empowered that you can do something, and it makes the baby feel less hopeless after the trauma of what happened. And I think I've just got new insight into how amazing breastfeeding is on the practical level, considering your experience and the experience of my childhood friend. And Leslie, I'm sure you would have heard that Down syndrome babies are most teachable when they are young. And that's the time to really work on them, the initial years. And I have seen a very, a very mature Down syndrome child. I mean, she used to do her little bit in the house. And when her elder sister got married and her elder sister's marriage broke up, the elder sister came back home. And everybody was thinking this girl doesn't understand anything. They went along the regular routine of things. And one day she tells her mother, you know, now that her husband has turned out to be a naughty boy, we need to take care of her too. And I was amazed when I heard that. I said, my God, you know, we call them, like, we don't realize how much they absorb, how much they understand. And apart from teaching them at a young age, I'm sure breastfeeding will go a long way in, I think it's really the best thing the baby can have, your baby can have now. And yeah, after hearing you all, I wish I had breastfed longer my babies. And yep. So breastfeeding, of course, is definitely the best. And the emotional things that go with it, the feeling of security, that is really something, your true legacy for your child. It's not your bank balance, it's not your property, it's the feeling of being wanted and loved, and being there for your child is what is going to really give your child such a secure emotional base for the rest of its life. It's just not the nourishment part of it, it's also the other part of it. And hats off to all of you for doing such a great job with your babies. Everyone's experience was very interesting. Zareen and Neha and Leslie and Shireen, Aparna, all really very interesting. One thing I had heard once, that if the baby bites at the breast, you just bring the baby really close to you so that they feel suffocated and they say, hey, leave me alone. So anyone who has a biting baby can just just bring the baby closer and they will immediately leave. Anyway. Okay, that's, I would love to hear the next person. And if anyone has a question for me, feel free to ask before that, if you like, or else we go to the next person.
Hema has a question, I think.
Yes, Hema.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So myself, Hema, like I have my younger one is 4.5, and my elder one is about 3. This month he'll be 3. So I'm feeding my younger one. When I got pregnant, I had to stop feeding my elder one because like before I knew that I am pregnant, I had this sore breast. When he was feeding, I felt it was very painful. I started like, what is happening? I didn't know I was pregnant at that time. And then after some days, I figured out I'm pregnant by the sore nipples. And then I make a test, and I just was assured I was pregnant. And then after that, I was not able to feed him. It was really painful, and I used to cry when he was feeding. I couldn't bear it, and then I used to go to an Ayurvedic doctor. He is the one who suggested me Birth Village, and I had both my deliveries from Birth Village, which is all completely natural, nobody intervened. It was all completely free of any interventions. It was all very nice feeling for me. But I couldn't breastfeed my elder one as much as I wanted. My body didn't let me do it, I would say, because my doctor said that all my nutrition level is decreasing. I was pregnant, and the initial stage of pregnancy, I would say, I was very weak. It was not I was not in hospital, or I was not induced anything or nothing like that, but I was literally weak. I was not able to stand up and feed, and that energy was not there for me. So everybody suggested me to stop, but I continued as much as I can. But by I was like 4 months, and fifth month starting, I had to stop, and I did not I did not continue the breastfeeding for my elder one. And for my younger one, I'm still continuing. He's almost 3 now. So I have that guilt inside me. I'm feeding one son, and the other son I'm not feeding. And the elder one, then I would say, when my second one was born, I told my elder one, you are free to come. You can latch me anytime. You can also start. But right, when the relatives, all the other people around him, I was giving him the offer, but all the people around him was confusing him. Hey, being a big boy, how can you go to your mother's breast and feed and all things? I don't know whether that has influenced him or not, but he has not come to me. I used to tell him, but like, I'm being silly, I understand, but I have that mom guilt in one side, that I did not do this to my elder one, and my younger one I'm still continuing. And when my elder one comes to me when I'm feeding the younger one, I feel that thing in his eyes, whether I don't know whether I'm making it up, but I have that guilt. And
Please don't have the guilt. As a mother, you did the best you could. And there are things in life, even apart from birth, there are things in life that we look back and we suffer guilt, but it is the most useless emotion.
Yeah.
It doesn't serve anything, and we really need to be in the present. And like, just you can't drive a car looking in the rear view mirror, no? You have to look
I completely understand. It is not something so much bothering also.
Be grateful you fed him when you did in the initial time. 6 months exclusive is the minimum they recommend, so he got more than that.
That's true.
Think of
So
that.
the question is, like, can I breastfeed my elder one again? Is there, like, if he wishes, like, how is it? Is it I just offered. I told him clearly, like, if you want, you can come and latch me. But I he really don't want to. I'm not sure about it.
Hima, what I think is, you're right. The stigmatization of people, when people say that, being an elder one, you should not go and all that stuff, that really affects kids.
Yeah.
Really affects.
Yes.
Just one taboo, and then they're like, oh, they're doing something really wrong. And they're in a learning stage, it affects them a lot. So unfortunate that the environment we do, with people with a zillion opinions, beats once and they start, oh, you should stop, and they roll their eyes and whatnot. It's really difficult. It's really difficult. Okay. In your private space, and just tell him that, you can do it, when we are at home, and, just make him understand that, not in front of him.
Like, yes, I'm telling him. maybe this is what, like, whether he really don't want, or is it because
No,
of the
I
pressure
think
I'm
he
just
wants
confused?
it.
And I used to tell him it's all fine.
He certainly wants it, but it's this taboo that people have attached.
Yeah, I
What
understand.
because I've seen my son too, the moment, what happened is, he used to, recite these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, song hai na, bachon ka. That one very nicely, openly, loudly, and he's the youngest of all cousins. And in a home celebration, everybody's older to him. Everybody's at least 5 years older to him. So then they said, sing a song, and then he said he sang his song ABCD, and they're like, oh, so silly. And since that day, he stopped singing any of his nursery rhymes.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm like, what the hell happened? So
Yes.
I can totally relate. And he was just not, no matter what, he knew all his nursery rhymes at 3. And then no matter what, he very happily sang in front of everyone. And then somebody said, oh, so silly, you sing nursery rhymes. And then that's it. He stopped. It affects.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
I would just like to add, Hima, I think it's like-minded community. Like,
Yes.
for example, my older daughter, like I mentioned, when Saman and I met at an event, and when she saw Kyra, Saman's older daughter, who's 4, she saw her having the breast milk. She walked up to me and she's like, why can't I have it? I didn't have an answer to that.
Yeah.
She stopped nursing. I told her, we've settled that no, you're not having it anymore, we're done. But when she saw that someone older, someone almost at the same, so for them, they don't understand age, all they know is height, so it's the same height.
Yes,
so she's
yes.
having it, I can also have it. So I think it's like-minded community also. And like how Shelja very rightly said, when people start saying no, children automatically take that. But if maybe your son finds
exactly,
one or two people also doing the same thing, or maybe like a community where you have same mothers feeding older kids also, if you can probably go to some event or maybe somewhere where you can see them having, where he sees the older kids also
Yeah,
having,
when you say
maybe
that, when you say that, I could relate it. Like even my younger one, when he was breastfeeding, at the time when he's not breastfeeding, he told me once that I don't want milk anymore. So I said, okay, what happened? Because my elder, I have become big. I'm like my big brother now.
This also says that we should have a lot of offline events where people meet up and then kids see each other, and then because it's very difficult to find breastfeeding mothers. Anybody beyond 6 months, it's so difficult to find. So it calls for offline meetings, I would say.
True,
right?
true.
So one question to Nutan ma'am is, as you said, even I have the same question. Can we start the feeding again? Any supplements, any kind of hospital grade pumps, anything that can help to initiate milk again?
Yes, for whom? For whom are you saying? For the
for my son. He's I nursed him for about 4.5 years, and the only time I had to stop was when I was prescribed antibiotics, and I didn't want that to get into his milk. So I stopped for 2 weeks, and that's when he weaned off. And after that, he used to just count. He learned his counting then, on his hands, like 1, 2, 3, would count every day. And then somehow, he weaned off after that.
yeah. And you have just one child or 2?
Yeah, one.
Yeah, no, you can always relactate. It'll take you about a week. A week of constant feeding will make you relactate.
Okay.
Suckling. If he suckles at the breast for about a week, the milk will come back.
Okay. And any pumps that could help, because the breast should have some milk for him to, even be motivated.
No pump. It's just let him feed, or let your husband. You can make it part of your sex life. If your husband sucks at the breast of your baby, it'll come back. You just require suction. I don't like the use of pumps and shields and stuff like that, because we are adding plastic and silicone to the food chain of the baby.
True.
And if they can, the baby can feed, if the baby is feeding directly, that's the best way to relactate. Does he get upset that there's no milk coming?
Initially he would, now he's kind of used to it. So
there's a relactation method in which you take milk in a katuri and you get this feeding tube for infants. It's called the feedy tube. You have to take a very thin one, about 0.5, and you dip, you tape that to your breast, you know.
Okay.
Tape the side to the breast, say if this is more clear, right?
Right, yeah.
And you put the other side in a
the katuri.
Attach it. No, you would have a syringe on the other side which would have milk in it. From the katuri, you take milk into the syringe, and then you attach the syringe to the other side of the tube. So while the baby is feeding, you press on the syringe and a little milk comes through this end of the tube. And the baby says, okay, this is my source of milk. That's the message the baby needs to get. And then the baby will continue feeding and sucking, and that is how you'll relactate. It's called a feeding supplementer.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I think there's a video of that on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is called Nutan Pandit. And it's called Nursing Supplementer, I think is the name of that video. You can watch it on.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Nutan ma'am, I had a question. Does the size of the breast really matter when we're lactating?
The size of the breast actually becomes smaller sometimes with so much of breastfeeding. Initially, it grows when the milk comes in. And when you continue breastfeeding for a long time, you get to your normal size and sometimes even smaller.
No, but when we're pregnant, so like I'm not very heavy on breasts, like absolutely not heavy on breasts. So I've had this criticism also, and I would like to also call it like a myth, stating that, you know, अरे इतनी पतली है, इसको क्या दूध आएगा?
When I had continued breastfeeding till I don't remember, I think a year, and I met a lactation consultant, and she said, "This is happening because you're not breastfeeding." I said, "But I am breastfeeding." But then I looked at myself, and my blouse had become so loose for me because I had actually lost weight on the breast with feeding. So the size doesn't really matter.
Because I was able to lactate them and I had enough milk. Like I used to have engorgements and then let down ho jata tha kafi time. So when the older one used to feed and when the younger one was not feeding, so I would just call her and I would be like, you know, there's a lot of milk coming, come. So she would help me with the engorgement at that time. But for people, of course, it was a big thing. But for me, I never felt that, oh, because छोटे breasts से इसलिए दूध नहीं आ रहा होगा enough. So I've always had that doubt.
No, it is not related to the size of the breast at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome.
I suppose we should now kind of go to our last story for the day. Garima?
Hi, everyone. Actually, I have a question for Nutan ma'am before I go for my story. Actually, Nutan ma'am, I just wanted to know one thing. I had induced before for the delivery and, you know, vaginal delivery. But the milk didn't come initially. So is it okay? Or, you know, because the nurse pressed my nipples so hard, it was a trauma. Like my delivery was easier than the breastfeeding journey. Because I feel because of that.
There is no milk for the first 4 days or so. And, you know, they don't tell you this somehow nowadays in the hospitals when they do antenatal classes. And they just make the mother feel so disempowered saying, "Aapka doodh nahi aa raha." But it's perfectly natural because the milk does take time. When you deliver the baby, the placenta gets expelled. And it takes a few days for the placental hormones to get released and expelled out of your body. When they get expelled fully, the same nourishment comes to your breast as milk. So if you have a premature baby, it will be right for a premature baby. If you have a full-term baby, it will be right for a full-term baby. And as your baby grows, you'll find the milk looks different. Sometimes thick, sometimes thin, sometimes bluish, sometimes yellowish, because it keeps changing according to the needs of the baby, which is so fascinating about breast milk. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's not natural not to have milk in the first few days. In fact, this is something all women should be told, so they don't get that feeling of disempowerment and they don't get sucked into giving the bottle because they feel disempowered, right?
Yeah, totally. But what will happen first 4 days? Then the kid will cry, or is it okay?
No,
They
there
are
is colostrum in the breast. There is colostrum in the breast from the 4th month of pregnancy onwards. And the baby gets that. It's a clear fluid. It's very high in fat and very high in protein. And that gives the baby a very full feeling. It's like if you have a very heavy meal with fat and protein, that would mean butter chicken or butter paneer. You would say, God, I'm so full. I'd like to skip my next meal, or maybe have a lighter meal, or you get hungrier later. So does the baby, because the baby gets the colostrum, which has many advantages. It has all the immunities the mother has. It has growth factors that cause the villi to grow in the gut of the baby and reduce allergies in the baby. And it helps the baby to pass its first stool and therefore reduces jaundice in the baby. Because jaundice happens when the broken down byproducts of red blood cells get reabsorbed into the skin, into the bloodstream. That is when jaundice happens. So giving colostrum reduces jaundice, gives immunities. All the immunities you have, the baby will get. And it's very high in fat and protein. So it's really the best thing you can give your baby. And it's adequate. It's not that it's inadequate.
I wish I'd met you before.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Me too.
see?
Yeah, me too. I feel that too.
But thank God this is recorded. So a lot of people can go and, hear the golden words about the golden milk. Yeah. That's so important. I like in my journey, if I'll just tell you guys this one thing, because you guys have covered so many things that I feel like, oh my God, I can listen to you guys for hours. So for me,
Garima, can I interrupt you? Because
go ahead.
Related to the question you just asked. So, because just in case we, lose the link, then it'll be gone. Nutan ma'am, so the first 4 days, so the baby would be sucking the colostrum, or is that what you're saying? Just the colostrum?
Yes, just the colostrum. Yeah, that's fine. The baby's stomach capacity is half a teaspoon in the first 2 days.
Right.
And that's the baby gets that much colostrum. It doesn't need 30 ml of milk or something, which is what they give in the formula to the baby.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, the baby's stomach capacity is just for the colostrum, and that's what the baby needs.
Right. And in case, latching has not been established.
And one thing I'd like to tell you is that all babies lose weight in the first week of life. That's natural. Right. So when you insist on exclusively breastfeeding and when you're discharged, your baby's below birth weight, you can go on a guilt trip saying, oh my God, I insisted on breastfeeding and now the baby is gone under birth weight. But that's a normal thing.
It is. Yeah.
So it's important to know that so you can continue with confidence on your breastfeeding journey.
Sure. Yeah. Just in case the latching has not been established, like mine was a NICU baby. So he was in the NICU for 5 days and the latching was difficult and it was not achieved. So in that case, pump it and then take it?
You can express the colostrum.
Okay, express it.
Put it on a pacifier. Just a drop or two and put it in the baby's mouth.
Okay.
You can feed like that. There is so little the baby needs and so little that is present. The minute you put it in a spoon or in a tube or something, half of it gets left in the tube, right? So if you just take a few drops, put it on a pacifier and put the pacifier. The pacifier is not the best thing for the baby, but at a time like this, it's useful in this way.
Very good idea. Thank you so much. Yeah. Very good idea. Excellent. Because that is so little that you don't know how to take. Yeah.
Sorry to interject, sorry, Garima. Also with that, you can, instead of the pacifier, like the empty syringes without the needle, you can use that as well to give the colostrum. And then like one thing that they'll sometimes say at the hospital is like, oh, but the baby took all the formula instead of the breast milk. The reason why the baby is able to drink the formula is because they don't have to suck. It just drops in. If you hold the formula bottle upside down, it just drips in. So there's no effort at all for them to have to do that.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That's how they, with extended bottle feeding, then they don't latch. My baby latched in the 3rd month. So it's quite a journey. Anyways, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, I was just telling you guys, like, I remember I was going to the doctor, and while waiting outside, because, there was somebody else inside, I could see a Pediasure ad. And then when I went inside, the notepad he was writing on, it has Nestle branding in it. And I'm like, how can he talk about breastfeeding? His entire hospital or entire cabin is marketed with the supply of formula. So of course, whatever I'll tell him or whatever I want to listen to, he will not have the right answers. He will have all the answers covered with a marketing of some brand. And I was like, maybe this is not the right place for me. So every time we go to the doctor, I feel like, who am I going to? It's a very important question to be asked, because we feel doctors are God, and that is for us. And when they say something, wo jaise kehte na, patthar ki laki. And when you are so vulnerable in the beginning of your journey, I was so vulnerable in the beginning. And when the doctor said something, I would be like, he knows it. He knows it better than me. And so yeah, that visit to that one doctor changed my perspective. Like, I need a doctor or somebody, a guiding light, who could be neutral and who could talk about something that and my intuition was stronger than what the doctor was saying. That time the doctor was saying, maybe you can add some top feed and something, your milk is not enough, or maybe it'll be easier, the journey will be easier for both of you. But then I realized the intuition is something telling you very different, the story of your intuition inside gut. So every time now as a mother, what really helped me before having a kid, I never worked on my intuitions or never focused so much, or it never struck to me. But after becoming a mother, I feel the intuition is such a brilliant thing that the nature or this almighty or somebody has given you, I don't know. But then if you listen to your intuition, I could feel even before my kid was going to be having a fever or something, there's an intuition that I get. And I listen to that and I prepare myself, like, okay, let's just, cover the house, or, just be more conscious or take the steps. I don't know what steps, but depending on the situation. But I feel intuition plays a vital role. So I feel these two things. So when I went to the doctor, the intuition really helped me. And the journey continued. I had never given top feed to my kid after coming back from that hospital, even though I had a tough time with my relations, with my relatives. Few of my husband's mother is an amazing woman, but I could feel the disconnect around that time, because their point of view was very different. They were very focused on the kid. So was I, but in a different way. So their opinions were very different from mine about the milk and everything. So it was sad. It was sad because you lose a lot of relations when you're caring for that one little soul. But you fight for it. You fight because you know your intuition. You don't kill your intuition. You fight for your intuition. So yeah, and there's a poem that I've written around that, when I was so upset with losing relationships and building this one relation with my kid. So here it goes. एक माँ की जुबानी, ए जिंदगी बता तेरे क्या घाव है, इस सफर में डगमगाई हर किसी की नाव है, हम सब है अधूरे से, छूटा कितनों का साथ है, अब तुझसे क्या छुपा है, वो रात में कुछ ख्वाब दफन किए, तकिया अब भी नम पड़ा है, फिर सुबह उस नन्ही मुस्कान ने जब आवाज लगाई, लगा जिंदगी तपती धूप, तो ये मुस्कान ठंडी छाव है. And that's what we live for. So kudos to each one of you. You guys are doing such amazing thing. And I wish I had found you earlier. and from Nutan ma'am to each one of you who's sharing your story. Neha, I know you personally. Someone, thank you for being here, each one of you. I can't express the joy, and the best part, it has been recorded. So I feel a lot of us, a lot of new moms like us will benefit from it, and they will say, like, this didn't happen because we could hear, listen to our intuitions and this video. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Love, love, love.